what I wanted to add was on the closing end, so the nuts and bolts of, would you get a buyer or a seller that's doing a 1031, what areas do you need to focus on in the contract when you draft your contract?
Sure.
Now, both the contracts have in the general standards, they have a clause that allows for 1031 exchanges, buyer seller agree to cooperate in the event that either party wants to do a 1031. That's pretty much all you need. I've seen additional terms added, or an additional rider if your person's doing a 1031. But I think that standard clause with additional verbal or written notice is going to be sufficient.
Okay.
The issue you run into is twofold. So one is, like Janet said, making sure your buyer or seller is exactly the same as the buyer or
Do we have a
seller
hand mic?
reverse.
Certain forever.
All right, good. Because those are things that we need to be able to tell the other agents too.
That, the buyer and seller are, so and if it's a Florida to Florida property, you're probably gonna know, you're gonna be working with them, you're gonna be aware of who owns what, you can go in the tax records, see the ownership. But say you get a call from somebody from New York, and it's John.
Right.
Well, I'm doing a 1031, I'm selling an apartment building in New York, I wanna come down and I wanna look at property. Your only contact is John. How the heck do you know how he's titled, or that New York property is titled?
Right.
And I'm doing a 1031 exchange. So as soon as you hear that, or if you find out that he's selling investment property and wanting to reinvest, and you're gonna broach a 1031 exchange with him, those additional questions need to be asked. How's your New York property titled? Who's the title closing company there? What's going on? What type of property is it? What's the purchase price? I mean, it may be a little invasive, but I
You
mean,
need to
that's
know.
kind of where you put your script together.
But they'll look at you as more professional. if you
You're a
ask those
knowledgeable,
questions. That's right.
right.
Yeah,
Big-
you must know what you're doing.
Yeah, and 80% of the burden falls on his CPA and Jen, or whoever your 1031 intermediary is gonna be. So you just need to make sure that your contract reflects, because if it doesn't, what you end up doing is you end up doing an assignment or a rider or an addendum or something to make sure that everything becomes consistent, so the exchange can happen the way it's supposed to.
So do like I do, pass the buck. Write up the contract before anybody signs it, send it over and ask for the intermediary to review it. Make sure it's right. That's easy. I mean, I do that with poor Ann all the time with things. It's like, hey, we review this, please, but it helps. And just like the as-is contract, I didn't see the point for the redundancy in my mind of an as-is addendum. And Ann was like, but Ken, it totally clarifies it to the point where it's even easier for your buyer to get out of the that contract during that inspection period. And I was like, oh, because nobody had ever told me that before. So when I do as-is contracts, I use the as-is addendum now. And I have people doing the same thing. Isn't it redundant? I don't know. I've had attorneys tell me, I don't say who, I've had attorneys tell me that it's just wise to include it with it. Why wouldn't we?
I didn't even know about that addendum, and I always do as is.
There you go. See, it helps for us to keep talking. Yeah, that's right.
And definitely if you get a standard, if you're using a standard contract, you may want to put the as-is on as well, because it does give them that ability to get out.
Yeah.
And then once,
Based on their sole discretion.
that's right. And once they get past that, then all the repair stuff kicks in. But you still have that time period where.
And will other agents question you on that one? Is it as is or standard? No, the addendum doesn't change the fact that it's on a standard contract.
It's a beautiful swirl.
Yeah. There you go.
What do you think it is?
How do you interpret that?
That's great. Depends on your interpretation. That's awesome.
So that's and the nice thing about that too is because the timeframes are so short, I mean, you are pretty much guaranteed one, if not two, if not three transactions.
Right.
Because you're working within that whole, I mean, I don't know anybody that's gonna take a 45-day and say, yeah, I'm gonna go out and go do open houses next week.
No,
I mean, the time frame is just way too short. And a lot of times too, they'll come to you 3 days before they close on their relinquished property and say, well, I decided I'm gonna do 1031 now. And, oh, I've been kind of perusing, you know, what's going on, but I don't have property. It's so now you're pushed into high gear.
Okay, we're gonna go find a property tonight.
Yeah.
Panic mode.
Let me do my research.
Here's a
and-
few options, pick one now.
Yep.
That's
Pick
right.
card and
But
card.
it was brutal to do one when things weren't staying on the market for more than
Yeah.
3 to 5 days. It was terrible.
Right.
Yeah, that was
Mhm.
not the way to do that. All of a sudden I need to hold it with my voice and you didn't.
Yeah, I
Okay,
don't really wanna hold it.
no problem. I'll hold it. But yeah, so you've got to pay attention to the market too. What are the market conditions? Keep your buyer or seller
Mhm.
up to date on those things. They need to know, hey, you might need to do it in that time period, but properties are staying on the market for 90 to 180 days. Even if it shows an average in our area of 54 days, that's including properties that go on the market and sell in a day or never hit the market. So we need to consider all of those things when we're getting into this with people and make sure and just keep them in the loop. And they need to have their expectations managed, right? That's such an important part of everything we do. All right. Ann.
Yeah, and you're not selling them on something. What you're doing is you're providing them smart options. Because, say you, like, a family in Florida, bought a property in 1982. And they've owned this factory since 1982 and they've owned this piece of land. And now they're retiring or they want to get out.
Beautiful,
Well,
yeah.
talk about estate planning, talk about stepped up basis when they die. Do you want to pay that tax now? Or do you want to do the 1031, get into some investment property that's more reasonable, less maintenance,
Right.
Yeah.
work with your estate planning attorney, and put that into your trust or put that into your estate plan.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, then
your
you're
kids
blessing
get
your
it
kids, right?
tax-free.
Yeah.
as well as with the stepped up basis. I mean,
Right.
there's so many, options.
Yeah.
On some way to do that.
Mm.
And then you get the second sale,
Yeah.
so, or second purchase.
There you go. So a lot of people, I think that, oh, I'll just have it in a 1031 until I retire and then I'll sell it.
Mhm.
Okay, but when you retire and you have a lower income, that might be nice, but yet that sales income is income.
Mm.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Just saying. People don't think about it.
Yeah, and the way the IRS rules work too, I get this question a lot too. They'll call up and they'll say, you're a title closing company. Can you do the 1031? No, can't do both. The qualified intermediary has to be a separate company, separate parking stations, separate
Mm.
funds wise.
Mhm.
Title closing company, you have, can't wear both hats when you
Mhm.
comes to a 1031 exchange.
And your buyer or seller has to be comfortable knowing the fact that the property is not going to be in their name during part of this. And that freaks some people out. But the fact of the matter is it can't be.
Right, and the other thing too is that the 1031 exchange calls for an assignment of the contract, so either the seller or the buyer, depending on who the opposing side is. I mean, they have to sign a form that says that I agree to an assignment of this contract to the intermediary, because the intermediary is the one taking the proceeds.
Mhm.
Now, I've never had anybody question that. It's a 1031, everybody assumes, everybody just signs the form, it's all okay. But it is an assignment of the contract. And if your contract says this contract is not assignable,
You're in trouble.
they better sign the assignment and agree, or the 1031 fails because they have the right to say no. Now, the opposing clause is they're agreeing to cooperate with forms, documents, and processes and procedures. So, you've kind of got conflicting clauses in there in the contract. And again, I've never had anybody question and not sign,
Yeah.
but it is a true assignment of the contract so that the net sale proceeds can be parked with the intermediary.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Good,
It's good.
Cool.
good. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, effective October 1, and I don't think FAR has come out with a form yet. Under the New Florida statute, seller must complete and provide a flood disclosure to purchaser of residential rural property at or before the time the sales contract is executed. So it becomes another seller disclosure document that you get the seller to sign in your pre-closing package.
I have a question with it.
If you went into contract before October 1st, but closing is after October 1st, do they still have to provide that form?
It becomes effective October 1. I think to be on the safe side, you should.
No, but let's say you have a buyer and the
Mhm.
seller, does the seller has to provide that form?
I would ask for it if you have a buyer,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
When it comes available. We don't have the form yet.
okay.
Now, I mean, the form is there, so those items basically are going to be what you're disclosing or not
Mhm.
disclosing.
Yeah.
So give them that and have them sign it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, if you go,
Why not?
did you, there, so we created one.
There you go.
Just to help, just to be helpful. I'm assuming FAR will come out with something. So basically, that's all it is. It's just, concentrating on your seller and buyer, doing some research on who the seller and buyer is, initially. So that's
Sure.
like one we just had, husband and wife sold a condo in New York. They came down, they wanted to take title in an LLC. So the LLC was created and the member interest is them, husband and wife. So it reads exactly the same way as what was on the deed when they sold. You get that. And a lot of the questions go to the CPA, if there's an audit, are you gonna stand behind this?
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
Right.
Cause yeah, we're not the professionals
No,
in
not every-
the tax field, yeah. And
No.
so, yeah, they need to get good help.
It's good.
And then, like we said, two new riders with regard to commission and bar commission. The riders, the way I
The
read
zero?
them, these.
There.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the riders, the way I read them are in circumstances where the seller has agreed to pay zero on bar commission. So one is a rider that says that the contract is gonna be contingent on the seller paying X number of dollars.
Okay.
The other one is a rider that says that the seller will give the buyer a credit of X number of dollars. And in the event the lender,
Credit, not a concession.
correct,
Yeah.
credit.
The other sealer.
And in the,
Right.
in the event the buyer's lender doesn't allow the maximum amount of that credit, then it switches to a broker to broker
Mhm.
situation where the seller then is paying the buyer's broker,
Mhm.
which then in a sense, in the back office,
Yep.
allows you to then charge the buyer zero.
Before I show properties now, I'm asking the other agent for a broker to broker commission agreement, so show me what you agreed to.
100%.
Let me know what you're doing.
Mhm,
I think it's only fair.
mhm.
Yeah.
I mean-
As soon as I show schedule showing time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if it's a zero, I mean, I think that's why these two came out,
Right,
because if
Yeah.
they say, well, my seller's not willing to pay you anything.
yeah, fine, I'll talk to my buyer
So
about
either
that.
we'll do
Yeah.
a contingent on and negotiate,
Yep.
or we'll do it as a seller credit.
Right.
Kind of love this contract is contingent upon, like,
Well,
hold their feet. in
Yeah.
the
I don't know
pie.
about this new thing.
Yeah,
It's not a bad thing.
It's.
I'm kind of
it's
into
pretty sweet to me.
it.
But regardless, you could never get more than what your buyer originally, obviously,
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
has contracted with you for. Though, you can.
Can we not update? Yeah.
We've done it before.
Yeah.
Hey, so,
Well, there's the question. We've been adding in additional terms. Also permitted to accept any bonuses. Is without a set dollar amount. Are we allowed to put that in our commission agreements for buyers. Because they want dollar amounts, but how do you do that when there's bonuses and things that come through? And or, you know, you go to a specific builder that's paying an additional $1,000 because you went to a lunch and learn there, whatever. To be able to accept these things. If you don't have that, according to these things, you can't accept it.
Cause it's considered additional commission.
Correct.
Mhm.
So that's what we're doing. I was just wondering if there's better
Mhm.
phrasing than what we're putting in there. You know me, short and sweet. I don't
Right.
want any extra words, but
Right.
I'm still trying to
Right.
figure out if that phrasing is enough.
I would probably as an exclusion. So buyer agrees to pay broker 3% of the purchase price,
Mhm.
3% of the purchase price excludes or does not include or does not or excludes builder builder bonuses, builder credits,
excluded.
builder.
Okay, because I was
Right.
putting it, I was using basically additionally.
I would've-
Okay, that
Yeah,
that
so
ties it
the
together.
3%
Yeah.
off the purchase price, but you're keeping the bonuses, the credits, the whatever.
Okay.
Separate as a,
So
so that way you
excluding-
don't need to.
Yeah, excluding any additional bonuses that buyer's agent may receive. I'm looking for verbiage.
I would not put that on every single contract. I would put it where it's applicable. So if you have a new construction build contract,
Mhm.
put it in there.
Or you go back and modify.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.